In January 1950, 11 of Boston's most well-known criminals managed to pull off the heist of the century. In a carefully crafted plan, the group stole nearly $3 million from the Brink security firm. For 6 years, investigators questioned how they pulled it off, and for 6 years, the men continued to walk free, until one day, their operation came crumbling down. Today, we're taking a look at the Great Brink's Robbery. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and a little dash of the paranormal. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing about this incredibly interesting case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
So what do we have here? Like the Avengers
Ooh.
assembling and robbing this, like a gathering of well-known criminals? It sounds wild.
It does sound a little Avengers-esque.
Look, robberies, all bad. I also don't know if they've done anything more illegal than that. That being said, kind of cool that a bunch of well-known robbers got together, I'm assuming. Then on top of that, $3 million. I'm assuming that's back then.
Yeah, in the 50s. Yeah, 1950.
So that's a ton of money. That's a like everyone is wealthy and retires and is good for the rest of their life kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. And then I'm also very excited to see how it all comes crashing down.
Yeah.
I'm assuming with so many different criminals involved, there's a spider web of people connected to everybody, and then everyone probably has like their people, and so someone probably ratted somewhere, or there's just a lot of loose holes everywhere. There's a lot of loose lips everywhere. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? And so
I know what you mean.
Yeah, a lot of gaps.
But I also know what you said.
Yeah, yep. There
okay.
You go. And
we're an innocent podcast, Task Force. It's just sometimes
we steer a little smutty.
It's purely on accident. Every single time, or is it? That's the real mystery. But here's the thing, Task Force, jot all that down because we have a psychic ability on display. There is a gut instinct here in Alfredo that is, I don't know, maybe I've Miyagi'd him over the past 5.5 years. This is a little bit of wax on, wax off. He can read between the lines of a mystery, but I'm really interested in what you're laying down. We're going to pluck on a few of those strings as this mystery unfolds. And I will say, now this went unsolved for 6 years. And eventually, yes, it did come crumbling down. We'll break down all the details of the heist, the investigation, and the crumble, but there's still a nugget of intrigue here. There's something else, a little mystery that is so ambiguous that we might not ever get to know what happened at the end. The period at the end of the sentence is completely missing, and so I'm very excited to talk about that. But there is a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
A lot to unfold.
Okay.
And again, we haven't done a heist in a while, and I feel like lately we've been inspired. I don't know if you've heard about in France, some thieves stole some royal gems. Absolutely wild. Lots going on in the Red Web sphere as always, but I'll be brief for the sake of this long episode. I just want to say, please review our show wherever you listen to us. If you enjoy our weekly digests of mysteries, true crime, unsolved mysteries, all those types of things, please give us a review. It's the free way to support us, and it does boost us in an increasingly algorithmic world. But also, if you want to support us directly, get this podcast ad-free and weekly upon weekly exclusives, go to redwebpod.com. That is our Patreon page. You'll get things like access to this Wednesday. We have a poll where you can kind of decide, you zhuzh, where the ship is steering, what kind of movie club we're going to do, sometimes what episode we're going to cover. And then this Friday, Fredo breaks down in our movie club episode, the movie Incantation, which was a wild found footage movie and a wonderful time. If you like horror movies, we do those every other week. All right, Fredo, let me take you back. It is January 17th, 1950. We're talking about Boston, Massachusetts, and this is the Great Brink's Robbery. I believe at the time, at least, it was the greatest heist in U.S. history. So it is unprecedented. It is truly an Ocean's 11. You talk about movies. It is truly an Ocean's 11 type thing because in total, I'll tell you, we'll get there, but there were 11 people.
Oh.
Maybe that's how George Clooney got the name. I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, was this like the inspiration for the film or something? Like, dang.
It could be. It has genuinely inspired a lot of books and movies after what went down because there's a lot of brains in this one. So 11 people ended up being involved in organizing this armed robbery that took place at the Brink's security firm there in the north end of Boston, Massachusetts. Now, as always, I'd like to start out with a picture. This is the location as it is today, the Brink's building. I'm not exactly sure what they do now, but it gives you kind of a mental picture of what you're seeing as this crime unfolds.
Okay, 3 floors, lots of windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much a whole wall of windows. Was it like red brick or something like that?
Looks like a nice, rich brown or red. Colorblind can't tell, but it looks like a nice building.
Yeah, looks good.
So if you haven't seen Brink's on the side of one of those security vans or whatever, usually the vehicles that transport cash, Brink's is a cash handling company. It's why they have those trucks. And their operations include anything from ATM maintenance, cash replenishment, cash management and payment services, as well as, of course, cash in transit services, moving copious amounts of valuable money from one place to another.
Got it.
And so this being one of their buildings, you can imagine it would be the jewel to go after. Again, it is January 17th, and at around 7:10 p.m. as the firm was closing for the day, 5 employees are taking stacks of undelivered cash, checks, money orders, things of that nature, and they're taking it to the safe, which is located there on the 2nd floor somewhere. Now, it's unclear how many other Brink's employees were present at the time of the robbery, but I'm going to give you as many details as possible because it is truly mind-boggling the way this crime unfolded. I'm genuinely impressed.
Okay.
So these 5 employees are now in the counting room. This is where all this cash is kind of being consolidated and double-checked. And there, in the counting room, the employees are met with 7 armed robbers. These robbers were dressed in similar fashion to the Brink's employees, so they were kind of disguising themselves. And immediately, I'm getting inside man energy.
Yep, very much so.
What was that, Clive
Owens? Yep. And Denzel Washington.
Yeah, Denzel Washington. We covered that in Movie Club. Incredible film. So yes, according to eyewitnesses, they're dressed up similarly to the Brink's employees. They're trying to fly under the radar, and they're wearing long navy peacoats, white gloves, and then chauffeurs' hats. Each robber also wore Halloween-type masks, which is completely terrifying, to cover their faces. This is very common. It's kind of a trope in movies now, but I feel like obviously you want to obscure your face, but this feels like at least one of the first instances where specifically Halloween-type masks are used. And in fact, we have an image of one of them. Fredo, I know you love comics. This is a mask of Captain Marvel. And so imagine somebody wearing this, robbing you down with a gun.
That's a wild mask of Captain Marvel.
I know.
Okay.
It's very much Mike Myers energy.
It's one of those masks that wrap around the head, but it's like very loose.
Yes.
And flappy.
One size certainly fits all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's got those red lips. Well, it's black and white, but the really high contrast lips.
Yeah, defined cheekbones, jawline, everything like that. Very superhero-esque.
I'm here to save the day. Get on the ground.
Yeah, get on the ground, give me everything you got.
Yeah. So from the jump, I think the crew's planning is incredibly apparent. This immediately leaps off the page to me and will become very apparent to the police as the investigation unfolds. But immediately what we're seeing are matching outfits, looking similar to employees, masks, of course, to obscure identity, gloves to prevent any sort of fingerprints being left at the scene, and of course, something I have never even really thought of, they're all wearing soft-soled shoes. So it's a softer rubber, I believe. So that way it avoids footstep noises. So they can kind of creep through the place and get the jump on people without anybody knowing they're moving through it.
That's, it's smart. They've obviously thought things through. But then, again, that's what I would expect if there's 11 people and they're well-known criminals, you know? Like, there's a reputation for a reason. And when you have that many minds together, then I would expect it to be more planned out than a usual robbery.
It's very well thought out, and it continues to stay impressive as we unfold. But from here, it was reported by the people, the employees there, that they were then held at gunpoint, told to get on the ground. After doing so, their hands were bound behind their back with rope, their mouths were covered with tape. Specifically, and I'll show you this tape in a second here, but they used a waterproof tape, so that way the saliva couldn't interfere with the stickiness, they couldn't get their mouths free to then start yelling or anything like that.
Oh, I guess with duct tape, yeah, you could just start getting that thing all sloppy wet.
Sogged up. Yeah, you
Sogged
start
up,
drooling
and then-
maybe?
And then just like, with the force of your tongue, just start to pull it down.
Maybe. Listen, I won't test it, but in theory, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to know.
So they then obviously are now proceeding with piling all of this cash. They're pouring it into these large canvas bags. And as they scrambled to collect the money as fast as they could, they started to hear a buzzer going off in the counting room. Now, they weren't sure what this buzzing meant. Was this some sort of alarm, what have you? And so one of the thieves approaches one of the employees. They rip the tape off their mouth. The employee then says, no, don't worry. Well, they're not trying to console them, to be fair, but they're saying the buzzer signifies, right, that someone is trying to get into the room. It's kind of like buzzing into someone's apartment, like, hey, can you open the door?
Yeah, someone's trying to get in. There's someone at the door.
Yeah. So it turns out the garage attendant had been attempting to enter for whatever reason, but they eventually turned away. Unaware that the robbery was unfolding, the attendant decided, okay, well, they're not letting me in. Maybe they've already gone off for the night, and then they go away. But that didn't stop the crew from having two guys line up at the door with their guns ready to jump whoever it was.
Yeah, so that person dodged a bullet, literally.
Perhaps literally, yeah. And from start to finish, this whole ordeal was kind of like a lightning event. It was 30 minutes from arrival to them rushing to get in their getaway car and fleeing the scene. Then at 7:37 p.m., one of the employees was able to wiggle free of their bindings. So they were left on the floor, bound up and taped up. They wiggled out of the ropes, freed their hands and their tape, and then called the police. And of course, police, I think, were minutes out. They were there pretty quickly. All that was left at the scene, and I'll talk deeply about the investigation here in a second, but all that they found left at the crime scene was the rope that they used to tie up the employees, the tape that was used to gag them, and one of the chauffeur's hats might have fallen off in their kerfuffle. And strangely, one of the employees actually lost their glasses. They must have lost them. We'll talk about these glasses later, where they ended up, what their destiny was, but they simply weren't found at the Brink's premises in this moment. So if you want to take a look, I do have an image of the waterproof adhesive tape. It's approved by Sears, so you know it's good.
Whoa.
And then also image D is the...
R.I.P. Sears.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Waterproof adhesive tape. Look at that. That old school packaging, black and white on the picture as well.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the chauffeur's hat is image D there.
Oh, wow. The old timely hat.
Yep. Got a little brim. But so that's what they found at the scene. These are the only clues, really, the only hard evidence at the scene. And so you can imagine the difficulty the police and eventually the FBI are going to have trying to figure this whole thing out. Now, in total, this is the reported take. This was the cash and securities discovered missing. $1,218,211 in cash was missing, and $1,557,183 in checks and other securities. This could be things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, paper certificates, essentially, of various value.
Yeah, so they made out with a lot. I mean, then they also had a lot of time, too, it seems. Like they had like a lot of control over the situation.
Right. When the alarm can't be sound, when the police can't be called, you kind of got a little bit of room to breathe, but they definitely didn't stay there welcome. They moved quickly.
Which is good. I mean, well, not good, but like that's the, if you were to do it.
If it was your crime, yeah, that's how you'd want it.
Right.
In addition to the guns that they brought, I believe they brought 38 caliber weapons, pistols perhaps. They also stole 4 revolvers that were found somewhere within Brink's. We couldn't get a very specific idea of if there was an armory somewhere, if they were convenient nearby. That's just a detail lost to reporting, but they did steal 4 of Brink's security revolvers. So in total, quick math, this adds up to just shy of $2.8 million, which, accounting for today's inflation, CPI inflation calculator, it would be worth approximately just north of $37.3 million today in 2025.
Damn, $37 million.
I mean, what's wild is like a $20 bill would be worth a couple hundred at this point, So, well, I mean, that's just the wild power of inflation and compounding.
Yeah.
But even for that day's currency, that is enough easily for all of them to go never work again. And they're just in 30 minutes, scoop it into a bag and disappear into the night. It's wild.
Yeah, what do you do at that point? Just go, okay, I'm going to go across seas and then just transfer the money that way and then just live my life?
Yeah, I mean, that's the next most difficult part. What do you do with that level of cash and not raise flags?
Yeah, I think you just go somewhere where you can just retire. That's it. Somewhere that's not like completely isolated, but not like not like London or something or Sydney, Australia. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You go somewhere that's close to there, possibly, maybe a small town further away or whatnot, and you just live the rest of your days, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you though,
Yeah.
that sounds like the dream. It's probably more difficult than you make it sound. Like,
it's gotta be.
You're lugging
100%.
around a bunch of cash, so you have trunks. Maybe not a bunch of trunks, because we're not talking $100 bills. We're talking like 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s. Most of these bills were under $20. So you have volume, you have weight, but then you got to figure out, if you're in London, you got to convert this currency consistently over long periods of time. Does that stand out to reporters? Does that stand out to authorities? If you do that within the confines of the US, it certainly would stand out.
I mean, is it like in the movies where you get a Swiss bank account?
I don't know how Swiss bank accounts work, but I'm sure that they would be, if you rolled up with a bunch of cash, you just give them a gesture, you just say shh, and they go, yes, sir.
I have no idea. That's just from movies. But,
I know, right? I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, getting the actual money into an account or something like that would be extremely, extremely difficult. So yeah, I don't know what you do. Like,
here's what I do. And this is for all you 1950s criminals out there. You let your buddies take the cash. You go for the stocks, bonds, and certs, right? You're trying to set your kids up with like investments. But then again, I don't know if these things are like have people's names on them or not, or if they're just loose stock certificates.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that, I feel like, I don't know how trackable that is. I'll be honest, I'm not a criminal. I'm not a mastermind. I don't know how you get away with it. Task Force, let us know.
Right. I mean, it's mostly like wanting to get out of the country, because otherwise it's like, okay, then I would just live the same lifestyle and just never have to worry about money ever again.
Yeah, you know what? That's probably the move. You just like keep up a job or whatever.
But then I'd be worried that they'd find me.
Yeah. It feels like you give yourself a really impossible problem.
Exactly.
All right. So the crime goes down. 911 is called, and minutes after, Boston police arrive on scene. And kind of like one of those comedy movies, they say, all right, this is my investigations. Pretty shortly after they arrive, special agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, also join in on the investigation, going, this is actually our jurisdiction. So they come in, they actually end up working together, which is great. And the 5 employees are then interviewed, of course, immediately. What do you know? What do you got? What did you see? And they were able to give descriptions of what the men wore, how they acted. Basically everything I just gave you came from the 5 employees. And according to their accounts, in fact, the robbers hardly spoke while the heist was unfolding, as if they all kind of knew what the moves were. And this also makes it difficult to match any voices, to recognize anybody physically or just by way of hearing them. So it seemed from their accounts that this robbery crew moved with knowledge and precision, continuing to show that this heist was very carefully and thoughtfully planned out and rehearsed. And I can't wait to talk about that a little bit more later. But investigators concluded that the thieves would have had to enter through 3 or 4 locked doors in order to make it all the way to the counting room, and that baffled them at the time. How did they make it through so many locked doors without being seen, heard, or reported? A big mystery to be sure. And as they look over the scene, police collected any evidence left behind by the robbers. They also noted the description and serial numbers of the missing revolvers in case these ever showed up in the wild, in a pawn shop, or were used in another crime and could maybe somehow link the men back to the crime. Gotta love that. Doing whatever they can to cast a wide net and grab as many hard pieces of evidence as possible. Now, like I said, due to the fact that most of the bills stolen were in denominations of $20 or less, it was nearly impossible to trace. Not because the serial numbers weren't accounted for or anything like that, but because in the 1950s, the 20, 10, 5, and 1s were pretty highly trafficked. So, you could spend a $1 bill and that might fly through multiple hands within the week. And so really triangulating at that point is difficult.
Yeah, it'd be very tough.
Really, you got to look at inordinate spend. Is anyone spending outside of their normal means? That's kind of what's going to tip you off. So of course, police immediately began looking into Boston's repeat offenders and criminals. With no other hard evidence to go off of, I think this is a brilliant move. And then this quickly spread throughout the rest of the United States. And known criminals were all brought in for questioning regarding their whereabouts that night. You gotta get those alibis. You gotta say, listen, I don't know if it's you, but you gotta start showing me it isn't.
Right.
You got a rap sheet on you. In fact, police, once looking at these criminals, also started to look at anybody who might have inside knowledge to the building or how it operated. Because again, clearly, with precision, they made it through locked doors to get right to this counting room at the right time as they're closing down. Enough time for that door to be open with people in it, but not after, not before, not when they're closed, not when they're busy. Brinks themselves also did some outreach to their customers across the nation, asking them to bring any sort of shipping materials that they had used and were putting stops, they called them, appropriate stops at banks nationwide, essentially saying, hey, if anyone sees anything funny or anything of a certain characteristic at any of our locations, just go ahead and raise a flag. Let's look into that. Could be criminals on the run, could be nothing. But Brinks is basically saying, hey, let's figure this out. And of course, with this wide net and this heist being so high profile, the robbery becomes front page news across the nation. Brinks then announces a $100,000 reward to anybody who can come forward with information that would then lead to an arrest or a conviction. That would be about $1.38 million today.
Ooh.
So, a lot of money missing, a lot of money on the line as a reward, but again, not a lot of hard evidence. And as you can imagine, once this hits the news, once this hits the nation's news, the FBI is now flooded with tips for potential suspects. Suddenly, people are seeing suspicion everywhere. For better or worse, this always happens. Thus began an extensive investigation. They looked into every single tip and every person that they knew who suddenly started spending large sums of money. I love it. I mean, the approach feels pretty bulletproof.
Yeah, it seems like they're going about it the right way. I mean, it's expected. This is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's enough to like throw everything at it.
And you also, if you kind of back off or don't figure this out, does this set a precedent? Does it open the floodgates for greater crimes to be committed more consistently?
True. That's a good point. That's a very good point. People go, look, they got away with it.
They got away with it. We could be Ocean's 12.
Maybe we do something smaller, better chance.
Or yeah. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. Task Force, we all know managing your finances takes a lot of time. Luckily, Rocket Money does all that heavy lifting for you, automatically finding ways that you can save and simplify all that process of managing your finances. Less stress, more free time, and a clearer path towards financial freedom, all in one app. If you don't know, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all the expenses that you have in one place, including subscriptions you might have forgotten about. And if you see subscriptions that you no longer want, Rocket Money will help you cancel them. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including bill due dates and paydays, in a way that's easy to digest. You can automatically create custom budgets based on your past spending if you want to. Honestly, I use this to keep track of all of my credit and debit cards, all the money coming in and out of my bank account. And it is super powerful. Even if you use the free account, it is a wonderful tool. I can't recommend it enough to kind of give you a very good view into all the money going on. It's super important to know where you're spending and what you're spending on. And I love categorizing so I can know where I over or underspend. Sometimes I surprise myself in certain months with, oh no, why did I spend so much? Or, hey, I was able to save this amount so I can put that away for the future. It really is a powerful tool and I really do enjoy it. Rocket Money has saved users over $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. So, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Let them know we sent you by going to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. Let them know that we love them, that you love them. rocketmoney.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button. You know I love to talk about it, but I'm going to tell you about it again because it makes buying so incredibly easy, and that is the power of Shopify. And there's a reason why so many businesses use it, by the way, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Let me tell you, Task Force, Shopify gives you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates that express your brand's style. You don't need to worry about needing to code it all. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and much more. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing tools and email tools to find and keep new customers. And of course, that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world. Well, it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already use it. They already love it. And let me tell you, I know I've talked about Shopify for quite some time. They're a great sponsor, and I have used them in the past. And it makes it very easy to have a wonderful, full, robust website with a team of one. So even if you're just starting up, you have something that you want to sell that you're making hands-on, and you're just a team of one, you can still have a really professional website. I love it. Now, if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb. As always, let them know we sent you by going to shopify.com/redweb. So, despite this wide net and literally throwing all resources at this investigation, all the leads ran cold nearly 3 weeks after the robbery, until February 5th, 1950. On this day, a police officer just 5 miles or 8 kilometers northwest of Boston, up in Somerville, Massachusetts, ended up locating one of the revolvers stolen from the scene of the robbery. Now, this actually came from a tip the day before. So on February 4th, there was a group of local boys who happened to be playing around the area. There was a sandbar near the Mystic River over there in Somerville. And as they were playing, they came across 2 weapons, 2 guns. One of them was the revolver. And when they reported this, police looked at it, matched the serial to one of the 4 guns. And so they confirmed, okay, one of the 4 revolvers was seemingly ditched here in the river, and it washed up or ended up on this sandbar. So now, with one of these 4 revolvers found, police began searching for the other 3, looking in and around the Mystic River, kind of up in this direction. It almost implies, at least in my head, you know, if it's 5 miles away northwest, maybe that's the direction they were fleeing that night.
Yeah, well,
so maybe you start looking.
It kind of gives you like a little sense of direction, like where to go, right?
Right. Now here's where things get interesting. They're tracking the guns down, but they don't necessarily find those 3. But the guns weren't the only lead, because when they were conducting interviews with all the eyewitnesses that night, it turns out there were several witnesses who noticed a 1949 green Ford truck that had a canvas top. And I do have an image of what this vehicle kind of would have looked like. I don't have the exact vehicle, but the next image here for you is a 1949 green Ford, to be sure.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous truck.
I mean, it's that old school looking truck. It's even got like the white on the black tire and everything like that. It's a pretty vehicle. Very timely.
Got the white wall tires, the chrome.
Yeah.
No, that car would definitely also go.
Yeah, it would.
But yeah, so the car looked something like this. I believe it was a similar model, if not this model, but it was a canvas top. So enough room up front for 2 people. Everybody else and the cash would have been stowed in the back. But now this was the next lead. They had the escape vehicle profile. They could start looking for this. And so, of course, with nothing else to go on, they start pursuing this lead pretty intensely. And then on March 4th, 1950, an identical truck was found, but in pieces. It was at a dump in Stoughton, Massachusetts, which, not northwest. This time, it was 21 miles or 34 kilometers south of Boston. They found this truck. It had been cut into pieces using acetylene torches, and then each of these pieces were placed in fiber bags. Parts of the truck had also been clearly beaten with a sledgehammer or some other large object to either deform them, tuck them away in other places, or try to make them look less like car parts or maybe fenders, just flatten them out or what have you. So clearly, a lot of intent went into getting this car disappeared.
Oh yeah, I mean, you want to get rid of all the evidence for sure. You don't want anything to be traced back to you. Oh man, I would dismantle it piece by piece. It'd be in a chop shop, and then I'd be like,
Right.
cut it to pieces, and then take those pieces, and then cut those pieces into fours, and then a bunch of people to disperse and go. I would spend so much money to cover everything.
Right. I feel like with all the money you stole, you could easily spend some of that back into hiding your trail, whatever that looks like. Now, when looking for this car, they found it. But interestingly, they were able to connect this car in particular to a stolen truck that was reportedly stolen back 4 months ago in November 4th, 1949. It was stolen from a Ford dealership near Fenway Park there in Boston. This piece will come back around, but I love the fact that it's a brand new car. There's no title, there's no trace. So again, these guys are smart. They're moving with purpose and intent to hide themselves. It's kind of spooky, to be honest.
It's spooky, but I mean, it's expected for me. I just feel like they're very intelligent criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And does not surprise me that the car was stolen. It was a new car. So that's why I'm so intrigued to figure out like how this starts falling apart, because right now they're taking the proper steps to really cover their tracks.
Absolutely.
But it's his beautiful, and well, I say beautiful, but like this beautiful cat and mouse game of these high IQ criminals and then, government, law enforcement, putting everything that they've got, putting their best foot forward to really try and find any little breadcrumb, and then hoping that it leads into busting the case wide open. It's a very intricate dance.
It's a beautiful, intricate dance, and that's not to compliment crime. I'll say that for you. Clearly, you're not doing that, but it is impressive. It's deeply impressive, and it is a work of art in its own way. It's why movies and heist movies and heists in general are always so fascinating, because like, how do you get away with it? How'd you do it? What did it look like? And how'd you come up with the plan?
Exactly.
Now, up to this point, the investigation, they're doing everything they can. I'm pretty impressed with the investigators themselves going off of basically nothing. But whatever and whoever dismantled these cars, it was perfect because it did ultimately lead to cold trails. And the case kind of went cold on clues at that point. So now moving forward, I'm going to hone us in a little bit. I'm going to start talking about suspects, and I'm going to throw a lot of names out there. If you get a little confused, feel free to stop me down. I'll make sure to reiterate because there's a lot of names to come. And I'm going to start playing towards the end of this crime because I could talk about dozens, genuinely dozens of known criminals who were strong suspects. But I'm going to hone it in further with Kat's help. She did such a great job outlining this and illuminating a lot of the key suspects that we're going to focus on the main ones because otherwise we'd get lost and we'd be here for probably a Netflix miniseries worth of time. So the first person that comes up, as time is going on, the suspect pool actually begins to narrow a little bit, and police have an amazing gut instinct for what they're seeing. And they're keeping watchful eyes on a few individuals in particular. Namely, we're going to start with Anthony Pino. So Pino was a main suspect in several different robberies across Massachusetts. He was known as a skilled case man, basically the person who would specialize in planning thefts, studying the target's layout, vulnerabilities, and scheduling the whole situation, which obviously this crime certainly needed. When Pino was brought in for questioning, though, regarding the night of the robbery, he did have a solid alibi. He claimed that he was at home in Roxbury, which is a neighborhood of Boston, until he left home at 7 p.m. Now remember, the crime went down around 7:10 p.m. So he leaves at 7 p.m. He goes to the liquor store owned by a man named Joseph McGinnis. He proceeded then to chat with him. A Boston police officer, serendipitously, was actually present at the local liquor store there and remembers him. So all three of them were actually chatting at the liquor store that night. And so his alibi does seem pretty solid. And when questioned, the Boston officer actually says, yeah, no, I did remember talking to him that evening, and so he was there. But investigators still felt a little strange. It was a strong alibi, but it wasn't airtight. There was a few gaps, a few moments of wiggle room, I guess.
Okay.
Because when you looked at the Brink security firm, it was only 15 minutes away from Pino's home there in Roxbury. So investigators felt that he could have still had some level of participation in the robbery within that time frame. And to me, I'm even thinking if he's the case man, if he's figuring it out, he's living very close. So maybe he cased the place, planned it out, and then he wasn't involved.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't boots on the ground. But now that we've mentioned Joseph McGinnis, let's talk about him as well, because he himself was also a strong suspect for Boston PD. He had previously been convicted of narcotics and robbery violations in the past, so he did have a bit of a rap sheet on him. And other criminals they had spoken with had described McGinnis as perfectly capable of planning and executing a crime of this caliber. So I don't know if it's his colleagues, people he's worked with, or other people in the criminal world, but basically people were like, yeah, no, I think McGinnis is capable of this if he were to have done it.
Okay.
Now, of course, we know he owned the liquor store, so he also has a pretty solid alibi, but again, it also wasn't considered airtight for similar reasons. He too reportedly left his home shortly before 7 p.m. in order to head to the store, presumably either to work his shift or to open it for an evening shift of some kind. Again, police believe that given the proximity to the Brink's location, he could have actively participated in the robbery somehow, and it wouldn't raise any suspicion. In addition to that, it's unclear how long he stayed at the liquor store after he arrived, so maybe he did leave before 7, and he certainly was there because Boston PD officer saw him, talked with him, bought something, and left. Who's to say he didn't leave at 7:05 or 7:10 or what have you?
True, yeah, pinpoint the exact time. It's flexible.
So police then investigated these two men thoroughly. They decided that if they had committed the crime, they certainly would have had the team for it. Their colleagues, the people that they worked with, they were surrounded by some of the best criminals in the Boston area, I suppose. So they're like, listen, we can't get you right now, but you're capable and you got the team to do it.
Yeah,
so
you're
we're gonna
on
keep
our
an
radar.
eye.
Even then, good chance they might know the people that did it. You know what I mean? Like same circles type situation.
Exactly. And now you're picking up because this begins a little bit of a domino effect as police went from these two guys. They then started looking through their known associates. And this led the investigators to two other suspects, also thought to be incredibly capable of carrying out this crime. These two men were Joseph James O'Keefe and Stanley Albert Gushora. O'Keefe and Gushora were known East Coast criminals, and they had committed several crimes together at this point. Both were also known to be well acquainted with Pino prior to the Brink's robbery. So of course, police begin questioning both of these men, and they found that their alibis had been weak at best. So now we have a few cracks in the foundation forming. They start probing at these cracks. So O'Keefe, let's talk about him.
Okay.
He had noted that he left his hotel in Boston at 7 p.m. to go get a drink at a bar. Immediately, I'm picking up on 7 p.m. Right before the crime. A lot of these guys are doing stuff at 7. I'll be honest, maybe I'm an old fogey, a bit boring here in my mid-30s now, but at 7, I'm starting to lock down.
Oh, really?
I know you. It starts 7, you start going, that's fourth meal, that's second wind, I'm going out.
That's,
you know?
Look, 7 p.m. people are like, I'm getting text messages. WYD.
The town's waking up.
And I'm like, nothing really. But no, I wasn't out robbing anyone.
Not that we know of.
Not that we know of.
Solid alibi, you're always here recording with me.
That's
we
true.
record 24/7. You only see
I always
one
record
episode
with
a week.
you until 7 p.m.
Exactly. So jot that down, investigators.
Not 5
so, okay.
for the past how many years?
Right. Not 5 for the past 5.5 years. Okay, so that's what O'Keefe is doing. He's at a hotel until 7, then he goes out for a drink at a bar. Gushora noted that he went out to drink that night as well. However, it was unclear what time he left. You know, I wouldn't remember if I walked out my door randomly, but he doesn't recall what time he left. Now, authorities were particularly interested in O'Keefe and Gushora because, as luck would have it, there was one key detail that stood out to them. Both of their families resided in Stoughton, where the green Ford truck was found in pieces. From here, their homes were searched, but no evidence was found that could link them to the truck or the robbery or anything in between. So it's kind of convenient. In my mind, I'm like, well, don't dump the truck in your own backyard.
Right. I mean, like everything is so meticulously thought out and well done, and then you just do something stupid like that.
Well, every crime's got a weak link, you know, the fool, the jester. So everything could be well thought out and just, you know, fall apart at the end. But yeah. So they're like, okay, well, you're from Stoughton. That's interesting to us. We're going to keep an eye. Now, in April 1950, the FBI received an anonymous tip that part of the stolen money was actually located at the home of a woman named Mary Hooley, who happened to be O'Keefe's sister. So Hooley wasn't her maiden name. Police then used this to then go search her home on April 27th, 1950, and they did find hidden in the home several $100s that had been hidden somewhere. We don't know if it was under the floor, in the walls, but just hidden.
In the mattress.
In the mattress. Your bed's really uncomfortable. It feels like money.
Yeah, but it feels expensive.
It feels expensive somehow? Now, I was confused because I'm thinking several $100s, that's not a very fair take. But, you know, maybe it's part of the take. You scatter it around. Who knows?
Yeah, and also who's to say there's not more money coming down the line, etc.
Totally. You got the bank guy. You all steal it, but you got one guy who kind of doles it out maybe. They launder it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the smart thing to do is be like, look, you can take this much as a lump sum now, or I double it and we split it into payments.
Okay.
And in my head, that keeps them wanting to be on point with everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Keeps them on track. No lazy.
Because they get their lump sum and they're like, whatever.
Right. Ooh, okay.
And then, but if I'm like, hey, you're getting double, just going to take longer just because I want you locked in.
Right.
Right. While the heat is piping hot.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. I do like the psychology of that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
Criminal. I like, but you're also going like, keep it, double it for the next person. I think there's something to that. If you got the linchpin, the person you can trust to keep all the money and dole it out, you'd probably want to launder it, you know, open a car wash, open a mattress firm or something like that.
It's going to be a mattress firm. Let's be real.
Yeah.
How are those places still in business?
How many mattresses are really flying off those shelves?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun little conspiracy. Okay, so several $100s are found. However, despite this, they couldn't really trace the bills back to the heist. Again, they weren't going to be able to trace all these bills in the first place, but because they have a consolidated lump of cash, they could try to track down, I imagine, some serial numbers or what have you. Either way, it's not connected. So maybe Mrs. Hooley here just has some money in the mattress. Who knows? Rainy day fund. So later in the summer of 1950, O'Keefe and Gushora would be arrested and jailed for an unrelated crime.
Oh, okay.
They both committed some sort of burglary, and so they went away for that and weapons possession. O'Keefe was serving a 3-year sentence in Towanda, Pennsylvania, and Gushora was serving a 5 to 20-year sentence at Western Pennsylvania Penitentiary in Pittsburgh. Even while serving their sentences, they repeatedly pleaded for release, saying, hey, I didn't do this, let's get me out of here. And according to informants involved in Boston's criminal underworld, between 1950 and 1954, there were rumors swirling up that other criminals were being pressured to contribute money towards the release of O'Keefe and Gushora specifically. Now, basically, the pressure's out. Hey, pay my bail, pay my bond, if there was one, get me out of here. Use the cash to get me out of prison. And this rumor's really swirling, and this keys investigators into a very tight knit of individuals because it turns out the criminals that were specifically pressured turned out to be Pino and McGinnis, who we talked about.
Yeah.
But 2 other men come up now. So like you said, the dominoes of who is connected to who start to fall.
That's the thing. Is so many people are connected, and then they've got their people, and then they've got their, you know what I mean? It's like it's like each person has like a whole group.
Yes.
A whole association.
It keeps everything supported and locked in so there's no loose lips, but that means when the system falls apart, it all falls apart.
Right. Like, damn.
Okay, so those 2 other men were Adolph Jazz Maffey and Henry Baker. And now all of these, again, were based on rumors that these 4 were being pressured, but they ended up being pretty substantial rumors. All were said to have worked with O'Keefe on what was called, in these rumors, the big job. So investigators are really interested in the hum of the town, the talk of the crime world, and maybe some other crime organization is like, listen, our guys aren't involved with this, so we'll play nice with you so you look another way another time.
Exactly. But the thing is, like, everyone is, it's also like the criminal world, so everyone's probably out for themselves, and
Oh yeah.
And like, oh man, I feel just to try and count on someone that's not gonna be pressured and then snitch.
That's tough.
It's very tough. That's why you gotta pay your people well, man. You gotta pay your people well.
And even then, oh yeah. Oh man, I can't wait. There's so much drama, some hot tea that comes out. We got miles to go. This is gonna be a long one, but let's dive in here. So throughout all of this, police are becoming increasingly more confident that O'Keefe and Pino in particular are the ones definitely linked to the crime. They're basically the pinpoint, the pivot point, the key arc stone, whatever the heck all those things are called, the metaphor of this whole crime. And from them, they will figure out the other ne'er-do-wells.
Damn. The thing is, like, once you get in, then it's like you slip through, you find one little crack, and all of a sudden it just spider webs out, you know?
You're totally right. Because get this, investigators were pretty sinister about this. I love how clever this was. Investigators kind of suspected that O'Keefe going to prison and these rumors starting to swirl, that O'Keefe might have felt that Pino turned his back on him due to the jail sentence. Because again, the pressure's going out, get me out of here, use the money to get me out. So they start to kind of drive the wedge in that way. So police continue to interview O'Keefe and Gushora while they're kind of a captive audience, they're in jail, and both still adamantly deny any involvement in the robbery, right? From here, investigators began looking closer at the two new guys, you got Maffey and Baker, as more probable suspects of the crime. Again, we know that there's at least 7, so let's start looking. Maffey was eventually questioned regarding his whereabouts the night of the robbery, but was unable to provide any specific alibi as to where he had been. So bang, no alibi. Baker, on the other hand, had been interviewed the night after the robbery, and so when they kind of looked back on the reports, they found out that he had claimed he was eating dinner with his family that night before then taking a 2-hour walk. Guess what time he left the house? 7 p.m. Yeah. So I'm keying in on
guys.
this.
You can't have a whole group of people just alibis vanishing at 7 o'clock.
Right.
You know, like...
Let's all get busy right around 7.
I mean, I feel like also people have like family members and friends. At least one person that knows, right? About like...
You think, yeah.
What they're doing and that they're probably a criminal and whatnot. So it's like, I don't know, man. Just make up the alibi. Make it try.
Yeah. Lil Timmy O'Keefe, no, his dad works at Nintendo.
Yeah.
He's not a crime boss.
No, not at all.
Not at all. So things are standing out. And as investigators continue exploring this crime network, the dominoes continue to fall because now they see another individual they want to look closer at. A man named Vincent Costa, who actually ended up being Pino's brother-in-law. Essentially, their confidence in Pino and O'Keefe's involvement continued to lead them, like I said, as a central point to expand out from. Anyone with a rap sheet connected to these two guys were now going under the microscope. And I pick out Vincent Costa because of what's to come. There were a few other people investigated to be sure, but not everybody did the crime, to be fair.
True. That's why I can't be a criminal, man. I would have so much anxiety for the rest of my life just thinking that like my face is pinned to a board.
Yeah.
And you know, they're keeping tabs on me. Might be just minor tabs, but you know, just checking to see what I'm doing, what I'm up to.
Right.
And I'm like,
you got the sword of Damocles hanging over your head forever.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
So Costa had previously been convicted of armed robbery, and this was 10 years ago, 1940, but he's got a rap sheet and he's connected. Now, on the night of the robbery, he claimed to have been working at his job at a motor terminal. He claimed that he stopped working at 5 p.m. and left to go home to eat dinner. Now, here's where things stand out a little bit, because at 7 p.m., he started his journey back to the motor terminal, where he said he continued to work until around 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So he took a little dinner break, I suppose, a little late afternoon siesta.
Of course, at the exact time and moment.
Yeah, exact time and moment. And now this is where reports start to highlight what I kind of thought was obvious after 3 instances. Investigators started to notice that many of these suspects frequently mentioned 7 p.m. in all of their alibis, and all of the 7 p.m. individuals are all tightly connected. So They began to theorize, intelligently I might add, that these men had specifically arranged activities to be as close as possible to the start of the robbery in order to create a convincing alibi, which they did a pretty decent job at.
Damn. Everyone is just like, yeah, I'm gonna go around this areas. Just so happens to be around these times.
I'm just taking the 2 hours walks.
It's just, it's just what I do.
I do it every night on that day.
Yeah, like, damn, man.
Here's the thing. I think we found the weak point in the network because O'Keefe is running into trouble now. While all of these men are experiencing various run-ins with the law, they're all criminals, they're doing other things. O'Keefe in particular was continuously violating his parole and needing money. He needed this money for legal fees. He needed this money to pay bond to not go to jail. And he's probably thinking, I'm assuming he's guilty right now when I'm thinking this, but he's probably like, we got so much money in the bank, whatever. I'm innocent of the law because I could just pay all these bonds. And I'm like, you're paying out of a pool that criminals are sharing from. You're raising tensions in your network, pal. But again, I'm making some assumptions. But okay, violating parole, he needs money. He was briefly in Boston after posting a $1,500 bond for a probation violation, and he was observed communicating with other members of the suspected robbery gang, all these other high-profile suspects. Investigators believed he contacted them for more of the loot money to pay his fees, and they wisely suspected that maybe, just maybe, there was a growing resentment between him and the other group members, that he was sucking the loot dry to pay himself free. Astute observation, again, we have another crack in the foundation to wedge in there.
Man, it's just too many pieces to a puzzle. That's the thing. Too many variables.
And they got close eyes on him too, because they really want to get this guy. They want to have something on him that they can use as leverage to get into this other thing. So now it's the spring of 1954. Years have gone by with all these kind of things happening, parole violations and things. O'Keefe reunites with a racketeer, someone we don't know the name of, but this man helped solicit money for his release back in 1950. A racketeer, just in case, is someone who is typically associated with the crime group. They obtain money illegally, kind of wash it, launder it, and it's almost like a loan shark. They're basically helping you gather money illegally, and maybe you'll owe them some money later on or what have you. Then on May 18th, 1954, O'Keefe and this anonymous racketeer reportedly kidnapped Costa, of all people. They held him for several $1,000s ransom. Now, this ransom wasn't out to the world. He kidnapped a criminal colleague to hold ransom against his other members of this potential robbery gang.
What?
Once again, unifying these suspects. He's like, hey, Pina and everybody else, if you want to see Costa alive, you better give me some of my money, you know?
This person is like wild.
He's a loose end, for sure.
A loose end, a loose cannon.
Yeah.
My God, dude.
It's wild. But they end up paying him a small amount. Not exactly what he requested, but some amount of cash. O'Keefe is just... Yes, he's off the deep end. He's jumped the shark. And 2 days after he takes Costa, on May 20th, he releases him. Costa and his wife, Pino and his wife, O'Keefe, and the racketeer were all then interviewed by FBI agents following this particular incident, and all of them claimed to know nothing about it. Again, mum's the word.
Right.
Let's not snitch.
Yeah, everyone shut your mouths.
Shut your mouths. Now, 2 weeks later, on June 5th, 1954, O'Keefe was driving when he got a strange feeling about the car that had rolled up next to him. He kind of had a sixth sense. He just felt strange. So he quickly crouches down in the driver's seat as then assassins seem to spring into action from the car next to him, and they're shooting into the vehicle upwards where his head and torso would have been. And O'Keefe ultimately makes it out of this event unharmed. So maybe one of his criminal colleagues or a hired hitman, to be sure.
I mean, they're criminals. At this point, he's causing too much of a ruckus. And you just take him out. Like, it's just, it's not going to get better. It's just going to get worse.
And they're probably going, guy, you have more money than God. Just chill out and cool your heels. And instead, he's like, I'm getting up to no good for no good reason too. They're just
no
like
good reason at all.
smaller crimes. So then 9 days after this attempted assassination, it was June 14th, O'Keefe and the racketeer reportedly paid a visit to Baker, again keeping the circle tight. So these two walk in, Baker sees them. He's nervous because everything he's heard in the past couple weeks makes him a little like, what is O'Keefe going to do now? Is he going to kidnap me for ransom? He's going to try to attack me? We knew the attempted assassination took place 9 days earlier. So he pulls out a gun. Shots are exchanged across parties. Ultimately, no one is harmed, but it kind of becomes chaos in the moment. And then 2 days after that, on June 16th, O'Keefe was shot for a third time. He suffered injuries from this one to his wrist and his chest, but he managed to escape. He's still alive. When police then arrived at the scene, they found a large pool of blood, a broken wristwatch, and a .45 caliber pistol, and 5 fired bullets.
See, the thing is, now you have to deal with the fact that he's still alive.
Right. And tensions have only greatly elevated at this point. They are just spiraling out of control.
Yep.
So after Baker and O'Keefe have this firefight, the very next day, as coincidence would have it, there was a man named Elmer, aka Trigger Burke, who was arrested for weapons possession. It turns out he had a machine gun, and it was the same weapon that was used to fire on O'Keefe from the car that pulled up next to him. It turns out Burke was the hired hitman, and all of O'Keefe's associates hired him to take O'Keefe out.
Oh.
So the police's suspicion...
I mean, yeah, it was causing too much of a ruckus.
Right. So the police are valid in their theory, and now they got the guy to prove it. Oh, you were the hitman. So now, after essentially his third attempt on his life, or a third, firefight, O'Keefe is in the wind. He disappears. And it wouldn't be until August 1st that he would be arrested again, this time for weapons possession and once again violating his parole. He was in Leicester, Massachusetts. This is 53 miles or 85 kilometers west of Boston. And his racketeer friend then disappeared 2 days after this, on August 3rd. His car was found near his home, but authorities were unable to locate him. Prominent criminals speculated that the racketeer was murdered because of his connection to O'Keefe, basically to eliminate any loose ends, and his body was then disposed of somewhere. So a lot's happened, a lot's unfolded, a lot of basically key things have happened. So I've kind of given you a, pardon the pun, a shotgun blast of information.
Yeah.
But are you with me so far?
Yes, I am.
Good, because we have a couple more names coming at you.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's to be expected. This is such a wide web of criminals.
Oh yeah, dude. It's wild. Okay, so O'Keefe is now in prison for unrelated crimes.
Okay.
But keep an eye on that, because now he's a captive audience for the FBI. Investigators, though, are still out there trying to figure out, okay, is there any way to pin these guys down? And are there other names? Are there other people we need to look at? Because they're continuing to narrow this wide suspect pool. Again, there's a lot of names I haven't name dropped, but as they continue to narrow it, another man comes up. James Faraday was an armed robbery specialist who was questioned also on the night of the robbery. Now, initially, he claimed to have been drinking at various bars sometime between 5:10 and 7:45 that night. He was kind of bar hopping, as it were, and he had witnesses that could see him, verify him at these bars. However, years of investigations began to link him to other members of the robbery gang, because again, it's been a little over 4 years now, and the investigators are starting to go, okay, Faraday, you have an alibi, but your network, you're actually pretty well linked with these guys. You're a first-term LinkedIn connector here. Another strong suspect also came from this, because again, these were all looked at the night of, and they went, all right, you don't have anything, you got an alibi. But now that the network has been so strengthened by O'Keefe's running amok, they come back to the network. Joseph Banfield was also rumored to be right there the night of the crime. He was also known to have a close relationship with McGinnis, and he was said to be an expert at driving getaway cars. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of the robbery, he was unable to provide a specific location, stating that he was still drunk from New Year's. Mind you, this was January 17th.
Right, what?
So that's a wild
Did he
answer.
just crack under pressure?
I don't know. He's like, I can't remember. I was drunk. I was drunk for 5 weeks, my man.
I was drunk. New Year's was wild.
It was a wild time. And listen, I don't know if you have an unhealthy issue, it could be possible that you just kind of kept the train rolling.
Carries over for 17 days.
Interestingly, you have a bit of karma, a bit of comeuppance here, because a former girlfriend reported seeing him the night of the robbery, and she stated that he definitely wasn't drunk.
Oh,
so,
damn.
an ex-lover comes through to say,
yeah,
not on my watch.
No, not the ex-girlfriend.
No way. Now, unfortunately, yes, this is a criminal, but unfortunately, he did die on February 1st, 1955, due to natural causes. I actually don't recall his age, Joseph Banfield. If you can help me, Christian, our producer, man in the chair, figure that out. If he was an older man or if he just happened to pass away. So basically, he was never got for the crime. As for the other suspects, many of them were in and out of jail and or facing other legal troubles throughout 1954. But this leads us back to O'Keefe.
Before you get there, don't know what the natural causes were exactly, but Banfield was 45 when he passed.
Okay. So quite young, all things considered. But yeah, okay. So let's just get into O'Keefe again because the man's got answers. So investigators felt that O'Keefe was reaching a boiling point and decided to continue to drive that wedge. They're questioning O'Keefe daily almost. So assuming their inclination is correct, they think they know who everybody is. And if their assumptions are correct, investigators are like, all right, well, between his fellow gang members using up all the loot pay for their legal fees, we have the missing racketeer who might have been killed, we have multiple attempts on O'Keefe's life. O'Keefe looks like he's a little weary. He's looking like a little run down.
Yeah, like he's ready to talk.
He's ready to talk. Maybe we do the full court press.
This is coming a mile away.
So it seems that he actually wrote angry letters to the members of the group demanding money for legal fees, once again stirring the pot on these rumors and once again tightly containing this social circle. However, his threats ultimately fell on deaf ears and he grew bitter towards the group, almost exactly as police suspected. And it's reported that the gang wasn't concerned that O'Keefe would confess. Given that he would be implicating himself, they thought, well, why would he confess? He would be throwing himself into jail. But Fredo, let me tell you right now, they were wrong.
Really?
Because on January 6, 1956 at 4:20 p.m., O'Keefe looked right at the two FBI agents and said these words, all right, what do you want to know?
There it is.
What do you want to know?
Surprise. What do you want to know?
What do you want to know? And let me tell you, Fredo, this was almost 6 years after the crime to the day.
6 years is going on for 6 years.
6 years. And another interesting factoid, Fredo, the statute of limitations on a robbery like this is 6 years.
Wait, so like they can only really press them if they find out within 6 years?
Yeah, so basically at this point, January 6, 1956, when the confession starts to come through, they were 11 days from being essentially scot-free.
How does that, why is that a thing? How does that work?
I don't know why it's a thing. Okay, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know why.
Right.
I can understand it. I will say this was a 6-year statute of limitations at the time. However, I don't know if it's because of this case or if it is just generally since this case, but I believe the statute of limitations has been lifted for this particular kind of crime. So it depends.
That's just so weird. It's like, if you don't get them within 6 years, I just got free.
Yeah, I don't know the origins of all of that, to be honest. Maybe it's so they're not like forever pressed to get someone, and maybe that pressure would lead to an increase in innocent people going to jail. I genuinely don't know.
True.
It's a valid question.
Okay. Sure.
I think it's interesting that it's 11 days out, but I'm picturing O'Keefe locked up in prison, completely excommunicated from his colleagues, can't get any of the money, so he goes, screw it. What's the point? I'll still be in prison in 11 days and they'll just be scot-free whether I say something or not. So you know what? We're all going down.
Dang, don't like want to cut a sentence down or anything like that? Like something?
I mean, maybe he had a plea deal. That could have been part of it.
Maybe he did.
So he's like, you know what? I'll at least get something out of this. But honestly, I think O'Keefe made his own bed. Dude was reckless.
He was very reckless.
But also, so did all of them. They all made their own bed. So it's time to get a good night's rest, boys. Okay. So in the following days, the FBI conducted a series of interviews with O'Keefe to gather the full story. They would verify his statements after each interview, most of the story having already been gathered over the last 6 years of investigation, so they could kind of corroborate everything and make sure it wasn't just riffing on the fly. He named all 11 perpetrators. Despite the witnesses at the time saying there was only 7 or so people, there was 11. So I have an image of all of them here, as well as their names, so you can kind of see everybody.
Bro, there was people here that were just under the radar for 6 years, and this man just gave them up. That's...
Yep. You're going to recognize most of them, but 2 of them had been talked to. I just didn't cover them here, but they're definitely involved. So in no particular order, of course, you have Joseph O'Keefe, the man himself, but you also have Joseph McGinnis, Anthony Pino, Adolph Jazz Maffey, Stanley Gushora, Vincent Costa, Henry Baker, James Faherty, Joseph Banfield, Michael Gagan, a new name, and Thomas Sandy Richardson, another newer name for us here. On January 12th, 1956, just 5 days before that statute of limitations was set to run out on the robbery, the FBI arrested 6 of the 11 members of the robbery gang.
Damn.
They arrested McGinnis, Pino, Maffey, Costa, Baker, and Gagan. The other 5 were accounted for. 2 of the 5, O'Keefe and Gushora, were already in prison for other crimes. Banfield had passed away. And the final 2, Faherty and Richardson, actually fled in order to avoid arrest. Somehow they caught wind of the raid. They bolted, but they were eventually found a few months later in May 16th, 1956, after FBI agents raided their hideout in Dorchester, Massachusetts.
Everyone's just been given... Oh, man. It busted like 11 days. Like 2 weeks before. They're just like, all right, you're scot-free. That's...
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the buzzer, you know what I'm saying?
And they're probably getting a little bit more calm, a little bit more cool, because they're thinking, all right, okay, 5 days left and we can just hit the sun, and then maybe you could flaunt your money and maybe that's when you could start spending it and not have to worry about it.
I mean, that's what I would be thinking, but apparently not, because damn, one person snitched and it's all falling to pieces. Like, they were actually genuinely getting away with it.
Yeah, dude, they really were, despite the chaotic nature of all of them still having crime and legal troubles and whatnot, and O'Keefe himself. But listen, we now know the thorough unfoldings of the crime. I think it's so wildly fascinating, but I'm gonna put that on the back burner for a second. I'll put that at the end of the episode. We'll talk how O'Keefe describes the entire crime actually went, with all the details, with all the amazing intricacies, because I want to kind of continue with the case. We know who they were now. We kind of know what happened. We know the unfoldings. But there's still a piece of this mystery that has baffled people since it went down 70 plus years ago. So we'll talk briefly about the trial, and then we'll talk about the missing money. Because more than half of this money, we have no idea where it is at all. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Select Quote. Task Force, I've talked about it in the past, but let me remind you of the Slayer rules. These are legal provisions that prevent people from inheriting property or benefiting from the estate of a person that they've murdered. One of the things they protect is someone getting killed for their life insurance policy, and this makes you realize how valuable life insurance is. And I mean, you don't need the Slayer rule to remind you, but that is where Select Quote comes in. For over 40 years, Select Quote has been one of the most trusted brokers in insurance, helping more than 2 million Americans secure over $700 billion in coverage. Their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy for your unique needs. They shop, you save. One of Select Quote's licensed agents will find the right policy for the right price for you, comparing plans from trusted, top-rated insurance companies to find a policy that fits your health, your lifestyle, and your budget. When I was first starting out getting familiar with insurance, whether it be auto, home insurance, life insurance, medical, all of it, it's a lot to digest. I really appreciated that Select Quote was there to easily shop around and compare everything all in one spot. It really is a good service if you're trying to get figured out on all of that sort of stuff and want to compare the different plans. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at selectquote.com/redweb. Save more than 50% on term life insurance. Selectquote.com/redweb today to get started. Once again, that's selectquote.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. As seasons change and days grow darker sooner, it could be a tough time for many. This November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with the loved ones, and remind the people in your life that you're there. Doing this almost leaves most people wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Now, therapy is a personal journey for every single person, but I really appreciate BetterHelp because it is a wonderful first step to get familiar with everything, to find the right person for you, but also therapy is just important to figure out all of the tools necessary to unlock the emotions and feelings of your life, really break everything down to understand why you feel the way you do and how to operate and move through this very complicated world. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. BetterHelp does the initial matchmaking work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session, based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Task Force members get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. So the trial. On August 6th, 1956, a trial began for 8 of the men. 8 because O'Keefe, again, had already pleaded guilty. Shortly after confessing, Banfield passed away. Gouchora actually had a brain tumor, and he passed away less than a month earlier on July 9th. So by this point, 2 of them had passed away, and 1 had already confessed. So there's your 8. And more than 100 people were called in as witnesses, with O'Keefe being the star witness. He detailed each defendant's role that night. Honestly, criminal, but this is a brave move.
Yeah, it's a big move.
I have to imagine he's got family. There's leverage being applied to these guys, but if he takes down his whole network, I guess, what do you do then?
Yeah, no idea.
So then 2 months later, in the early hours of October 6th, 1956, after 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury had come to a ruling. All 8 men were found guilty, all receiving life sentences for robbery. However, with the exception of McGinnis, who passed away while in prison, they were all paroled 15 years later in 1971. Able to do it again in their ripe old age of whatever they were. 60-something, 70-something.
That was wild. It's like 15 years later. It's like, all right, you're good.
They're like, well, you haven't committed a robbery while in prison, so I guess you're fine.
Right.
I don't know. That part's always interesting, but I'm not
It's always very interesting. But, I get people redeem themselves or
right.
not.
Good behavior, all of these things. And also, if you are older, unable to do something like this, again, I don't know the intricacies of making such a decision, but I can understand it. All right. So with the perpetrators found and prosecuted, the last puzzle piece was the thing that baffled investigators almost most in the end, was the missing money. So prior to the trial, in June 1956, a man known as Fat Joe was identified as having $51,906 of this stolen loot. This is a random man who showed up with over $51,000 of the stolen cash. Police discovered this after arresting another Boston criminal who was questioned for suspected use of counterfeit bills. In this line of questioning for this other criminal, he claimed that he found this money in a hotel room. He took the officers to this hotel room and said, "This is where it is." Just under $5,000 was found in his possession, with a little over $4,600 being traced back to the stolen loot. While being questioned, he revealed that he shared an office space with a man named Fat John, who offered to pay him to transport money from this stolen loot. So we kind of have this other guy who might be connected to the crime who's like, "I'll give you some good cash if you could just take this out of the state." Ultimately, both men were arrested and served short prison sentences. But regardless of this is really the final remaining dregs of this crime and anyone connected to it, because beyond this, even with this minor recovery of nearly $52,000, over $1.15 million remained unaccounted for. However, if you quote the Boston Globe at the time, they said more than $1.5 million of the cash remains missing, which is well over half.
That's a good amount. I mean, a lot of it was being spent back for legal fees. Damn, like.
Right.
Jesus. Oh, man, it all crumbled apart, dude. It all crumbled apart. It's like one person just folded. But that's all it takes.
That really is. Just
Yeah.
one weak link, pull that apart, off it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of curious. I mean, they said cash in that article, but I'm thinking like, well, maybe they split up the cash itself, because I believe each of the 11 men walked away with a $100,000 stake. But I'm thinking, well, what about the securities, right? What about the stocks, bonds, and other things that couldn't maybe be so easily liquidated? Were those hidden? Were those the things that were lost? So I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Of the total value of money stolen, half is missing, but I don't know what proportion is cash versus securities.
Yeah, like how that's all the percentages of all that.
And so now my mind is kind of running. Is there some sort of secret 12th or 13th person, a godfather figure who's just sitting on the securities or the cash, or regardless, they took each other out and that was a terrible thing within the confine of the crime, but they're like, but the father's, he's untouchables. He'll takes out our families.
Yeah, they could.
I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. There could be another person in the wings.
And who knows, with that level of money in the 50s, what that criminal empire could have evolved into today.
Yeah, that could have been, I don't know. I mean, it also could be someone that like a part of a prominent company or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they cleaned up their act. Who knows?
That'd be the smart thing to do. Clean up your act and then just go, okay, I'm set for the rest of my life. Here I go. You know, like there's no need to keep pushing for anything at that point. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, it's wild. So there's a lot of money. There's rumors that swirl, conspiracies or theories as to where it went. Some people think that maybe it was buried somewhere or expertly hidden somewhere in walls or floor panels. So maybe, I don't know, if you're in an archaic building in the Boston area, there's a non-zero chance that you find some old bills stuffed in the walls and in the vents. I mean, a hotel had $5,000 cash in it, supposedly. Could just be scattered around the city. Could have been picked up by other people. Maybe they went and got it when they got out on parole. Who knows? It's unclear, ultimately, if any of the men led extravagant lifestyles after they were released. And so there's no good evidence to say that they did find that money later, or if their families had that money later.
Damn, that's true. I mean, most likely, I would think so. I would think that some of it's stowed away and they went, look, we got caught. I'll spend 15 years for this penalty and then I'll get out and then I'll be good.
Right. And just live completely under the radar. Live as you lived before so you don't raise any suspicion.
Yeah, but just don't have to worry about money ever again.
Yeah. So the world may never know what truly happened to the missing money, as the last surviving member of the group, Maffey, passed away at the age of 77 in the year 1988. So nothing but loose ends and dead individuals to really tie this back.
And that's it. Dude, this is a thrilling case.
It's wild.
So many people, one loose end, right at the buzzard, like the authorities got it together. You know, a lot of them are still able to benefit from the crime, which is wild. And I like the idea of there's possibly more people that just weren't found out.
I think that's the most alluring idea. It's the most, I don't know, again, not to be on the side of the criminals, but there's something poetic about that. And also something deeply intriguing about that, you know, that there's something secret that could have happened. Or maybe, you know, I think it'd be funny if somewhere, sometime, some neighborhood of Massachusetts just suddenly came into money. Like everyone's driving Ferraris or whatever. And you're
That'd
like, what happened to this neighborhood?
Yeah, just spread it. Spread the wealth, man. Tell everyone to be quiet.
Yeah. So you've been patient. You've been kind. Let me take you through how the crime actually unfolded. And we are getting into our longest episode of Red Web, but it is wild how this went down.
Okay.
I don't know if I can truncate this because the details are fantastic. So this is all according to O'Keefe. The robbery was a combined effort using the expertise of all the involved criminals to carry out the vision first thought of by Pino. So again, like Ocean's 11, everyone's got a role. I'm wondering who the gymnast was, who went through all the vents. So interestingly, the first time that this entire idea was thought of and conceived was 3 years prior, in 1947. This was at the previous Brink's location. They were going to hit that one up. Their plan was to break in, steal a truck that contained the payroll, and then they were going to run off into the night. However, there were too many weak points and risks in their plan, and they decided, let's not carry this one out. Too dangerous, too risky. In December 1948, when Brink's moved to the new North End location, the group immediately began planning to try again. Thus began a very intense casing operation. And Pino, as you might recall, lived only 15 minutes away. He had all the reason in the world to go on a walk or drive by and just see what was going on, see the schedule of the building, because man, did they know the schedule of that building.
Right. They were casing it, right? We talked about how they had to go through a bunch of different doors and all that kind of stuff, and how like they knew everything to a T. And so it's like, I'm surprised there wasn't like an inside job or something like that, because it was almost so detailed how much they knew.
They got very well acquainted with the inner workings of the building, the schedule of the employees when they left for the day, but as you pointed out, how did they get through those 3 or 4, I believe 4 locked doors? Well, O'Keefe has the answer. So periodically they would visit this building, sometimes usually after hours to keep a low profile, but in doing this, members would actually take the lock cylinders out of the door on various different days. And then they would fashion a key that would fit into that lock and work it.
Wait, so they just unscrewed it?
Somehow they would finagle the cylinder out of the lock mechanism. And once they had it out, they would be able to fashion a key, because a key is generally, I think, 6 pins that each have a different height. And that's when you look at the key, you see different height ridges. And that way, when the key slides in, it puts all the pins at certain heights. Well, if you're a very skilled locksmith, you would be able to again, I'm very much truncating here, but if you could figure out the pin heights for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you could then file down a key that would then start working that door.
Right. But I mean, what did they just get the molding for it? Did they unscrew it, take it out, and then take it with them? What?
Good questions. With these old locks, they might have been able to look at the pins once the cylinder was out. I don't have the finer details of that, but suffice to say, they were in some way able to fashion a key that would fit that lock. And I say 3 to 4 doors because that's what I mentioned earlier. Forgive the inconsistency here, because it turns out, per O'Keefe, they actually made it through 5 different doors. And they did this by going on 5 different days. On day 1, we don't know exactly how they made it through the first door, but they took the cylinder out, fashioned the key, left for the night. Some other day, they used their key to get through that first door, did the same operation on the second door. And so over the course of 5 days, while the building was closed, they fashioned a key for each door.
What? It just daisy-chained itself.
And because they knew the schedule, they were able to do it and go completely undetected. Maybe they also, because they dressed up like the employees, we don't know.
True. That's just wild, man.
Wild.
But that's how they did it. It's so simple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was
it's simple, elegant.
Yeah, simple and elegant. And they did it within days. And no one would have found out. No one would have known. That's
right.
That's a feat. That's an accomplishment.
It really is. And being inside, they start to get very well acquainted with the layout, so they know where to go, how to get to that place, etc. And then when they decide that they need a truck, because cash is heavy. I think a full duffel bag filled with cash can weigh around 55 pounds, depending on the size of the duffel bag, of course, but heavy. So they decided they needed a truck, and when they decided that, they said, okay, we're going to need to steal one, and steal a new one in particular, because it needs to have no identifying marks. They need to not know who we stole it from, because that could connect to us, all those things. It needs to be running in perfect condition so we know it will get up and get out of there. So they stole a truck. Then in November and December of the year before, leading up to the crime here in 1949, the men practiced their getaway routine until it was flawless. They had nothing but time on their hands. It's a new Brink's building. Let's take it easy. Get this dialed in. Now, in the month before the robbery, they actually attempted to rob the place 6 different times, but the conditions just were never right. They approached the building, just felt it was off, felt the timing was off or something was amiss, and decided, no, let's not do it.
Good on them for the patience. I mean, obviously it paid off.
Right. In fact, they actually tried the night before. They were like, let's do it on the 16th. And again, they just didn't feel it was right.
It is very, very interesting, the fact that we're getting so much detail about all of this
Mm-hmm.
and like how it's going down and everything like that, like it's wild.
Now, the thing that made it the night, because again, they're kind of like, it's not feeling right. Something's off. The schedule's a little different than we expected. What made the 17th perfect was, for whatever reason, they noticed the streetlights were dim on Prince Street, which is the side of the building that they were going to be approaching. And they thought, well, hey, that works in our favor. It kind of creates a more dim lit area. And so any details kind of get washed out in the dark. So around 7 p.m., the men all met in the Roxbury neighborhood. That's where Pino lived. And they loaded into the back of the green Ford truck. Banfield served as the driver. He was in the front by himself. In the back, you had Pino, O'Keefe, Maffey, Richardson, Baker, Faraday, Gushora, and Gagan. McGinnis was working at his liquor store and was not present at the robbery. Costa served as a lookout on the roof across the building, the neighboring building at least, and he would signal the men to kind of keep a lookout. So if anyone was approaching, he'd shine his flashlight.
Got it.
All the men but Banfield and Pino went inside to collect the money, hence why the witnesses saw 7 robbers inside. And here's the thing, I buried this lead at the beginning.
Okay.
I'll pull this detail back out. While they were inside, shuffling about, tying up the employees, collecting all the cash, they accidentally scooped up one of the employees' glasses that had fallen off. And remember, one of the employees lost those. Well, O'Keefe had an answer. They found that in the bag of cash when they were divvying up the money, and they just destroyed the glasses and threw them out so no one could ever trace it back to them.
Okay.
It's such a specific detail, but
yeah,
you know.
it's a weird little detail.
Mm-hmm.
This is accidental.
Yeah, so after the robbery was completed, of course, as we know, they got back to the truck, they sped off into the night. Costa, who was up on the other building, fled in a different vehicle, a different stolen Ford sedan, actually. The group then immediately dropped off Gagan so he could establish a stronger alibi. They're kind of thinking of each other, and it's also why Gagan was not on the radar as far as our discussion was concerned for quite some time. Because in particular, during that window of time, he was on parole, and so they knew he would be one of the first people investigators would go after, and if he didn't have a strong enough alibi, he would become the O'Keefe. He would become the person that the police would start from, and then they would just roll through the crew, because they all work together.
Right.
So they said, okay, Gagan, you go off, we're going to drop you off individually so you can have a very strong alibi. Banfield then immediately left to go hide the truck and returned an hour and a half later with McGinnis. And of course, as I mentioned, the loot was reportedly not divvied up until several weeks later. We don't know where it was hidden. I'm sure that information's somewhere. I'm sure O'Keefe would share that. But then it is said that each of the participants took roughly $100,000 each.
Damn.
There you have it. The largest recorded heist in U.S. history, at least at the time.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, back then, it doesn't seem like a lot now. Almost doesn't seem worth it to go through the trouble. But back then, you know, you got to account for inflation. Yeah, they're sitting pretty.
100K, just for the record, is about $1.4 million today at the end of 2025.
Okay. Yeah, so a good chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
Not as wild as I thought.
Not as wild when you look at the total.
Yeah.
Was somewhere near like or north of 30 million. You're starting to go
30 mil. But I mean, there's so many moving pieces. I'm assuming that's it.
right. And that's why I was like, why is the divvy 100K? It feels a little soft, but you know what? I don't care. They're criminals. But ultimately, you know, Richardson is quoted as saying, hey, have you ever had $100,000 all to your own for 6 years? Kind of feeling like it was worth it. Others like O'Keefe, of course, but also others like Maffey claimed in the end it wasn't worth all the trouble. But ultimately, as I mentioned, the robbery became iconic in America's history. Several books, several movies have all been written about the incident, and it will forever remain as one of the most intriguing, probably one of the most elaborate heists that we'll see, but I don't want to put it to America to, you know, maybe another heist like this will come off in the next couple of years. Who knows?
Right. But still elaborate, and they almost got away with it. Like that's the wildest thing is the fact that they almost got away with it. They were so close. Just one person, one just salty person. Even then, it's like they didn't have their stuff together. They were a loose cannon, and that's what did it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even like the authorities really put it together. It was more so the fact that like this person was just reckless, and then the authorities like, all right, cool, got you.
Right. Authorities had great insight, great intuition, but ultimately they didn't have the hard evidence. And O'Keefe, just being a loose cannon, gave investigators every single inch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're totally right. But that concludes the Great Brink's Robbery.
Damn.
One for the ages, to be sure. I can't believe we haven't covered this one yet.
I know, and that's a long one too. Like there was so much to it. There was so much happening, and I don't know, like over the course of just so many years that this case went on, 6 years. Like I can't imagine running around for 6 years scot-free. Obviously didn't quite work out, but it is what it is.
All right. Well, as we come to an end, Task Force, thank you all so much for this extra long episode of Red Web and staying with us and hanging out and supporting us over at redwebpod.com, or like I said, reviewing us or even just sharing us with a friend. Anybody who you think will like heists, but also true crime, unsolved mysteries, and of course, we got to have the dash of the paranormal.
Yes, we do.
We got that ghost hunt. If you want to go check it out from last month, that's still rolling around in our minds is what happened there, what was going on. But otherwise, I want to give a few specific shout outs. We have Greethel, who is our newest member of the task force. Thank you for joining us at redwebpod.com. And our buff scientist of the week is Taku Kajia. And we also have, of course, our shout outs to the squonks this week are Azrael, Gavin Day, Low K, and Holster, just to name a few. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you all so much. Fredo, any final thoughts as we come to a close on this crazy, crazy heist?
It's one for the books for sure. And I mean, that shows because of the episode's length.
Yeah.
There was a lot to talk about and discuss. It seems so simple, but it really is so entertaining. And it's just unfortunate how it fell apart.
For them, but for us,
Yeah, well, for us.
we got him.
Yeah,
We got him.
You got justice.
Man, that money, where is it? Maybe that's a treasure hunt. This case will spawn a treasure hunt and we'll go after it.
And then find the monies.
Yeah.
Oh,
You won't know, Task Force, but as always, there will be signs.
there will be signs. That money is gone to the wind. It is so far gone and spent, and yeah.
Absolutely. And Task Force, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.